Welcome to the Rotary Club of Batesville. Aaron, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, would you lead us in prayer?
Join me in prayer, please. Thank you, Lord, for this beautiful sunny day and for the chance for us Rotarians to gather together and work towards making our world a better place for future generations. Thank you for this meal and for the ones that prepared it. Please lead us, guide us, and direct us. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Nelson.
Nelson's here.
I saw him. Aaron.
I'm not Aaron, but
Hey, Nelson.
did you get my song?
I'm sorry, I did not, sir.
Okay, we're gonna have to do, we were gonna do the Batesville High School alma mater. Now, would you and Dr. Heskel like to sing it for us?
Don't think you want that.
Everybody hadn't finished their music.
Let's give them the football version. They just go, and they're done.
Okay, here we go, the Rotary song, verse number 1.
R-O-T-A-R-Y, that spells Rotary. R-O-T-A-R-Y is known on land and sea. From north to south, from east to west, he profits most who serves the best. R-O-T-A-R-Y, that spells Rotary.
Good. We'll do the alma mater next week. We'll do the jazz band. We'll do a jazz version.
You may have noticed that I passed out ballots. We do have some options on where we can go eat and find a permanent home. So if you would rank those top 3, 1, 2, and 3, and give them to Donna or me or whoever, and we'll aggregate those, and then the board will move forward with picking a permanent home for the club. I see that Dwight and Ryan have birthdays this week. Dwight was in here a little while ago. He may have stepped out, but happy birthday to them. And Deanna has a wedding anniversary this week. No club anniversaries. We have a district event in Little Rock at the Sheridan. That's the intersection of University and 630 on April 20th to the 22nd. The board has approved 2 vacant positions. If you want to go, we'll pay for you to go and participate. We do understand that we're getting some kind of award there, so it might be nice to have some Batesville Rotarians there if you want to come. So let me know. We need to know by tomorrow, so you don't have to pay a late fee. But you don't have to go to the whole event. You can just go to 1 or 2 days of it if you want to. That's a Friday and Saturday and then Sunday. Dictionaries, I think you know who you are. If you promised to pick up a dictionary, please, I've had some people threaten to come follow me to my office to pick up dictionaries and deliver them before the school year's out, so please do that if you will. Our Lion Rotaract Club is up and running. They haven't been approved yet by the Student Government Association, but they will soon. They want to help deliver the dictionaries. God bless them, isn't that great? So they're going to help do that on April 27th, we hope. So if you're scheduled to deliver dictionaries and you want some help from the Rotaractors, let me know. They've cleared today to help do that. Community Awards, we now run a notice in the newspaper and we've shared it on Facebook. If you haven't shared it on Facebook, please do. We are accepting community awards for Making a Difference Service Award, Doctor, Nurse, and Care Worker of the Year Award, Outstanding Community Service Award, Educator of the Year, and Role Model of the Year. So please nominate some worthy folks for that. And remember, May 19, we have the district bike ride here that we're having in Batesville. Finally, I want to just sort of talk about this. The district has contacted us to see if we would be interested in having another youth exchange student come. There's 2 sides to this as I understand it. Our area schools can send a student through the Rotary Youth Exchange Program if they want to do that. And that doesn't affect their eligibility regardless of whether we take one. But the district is interested in us having another exchange student if we want to do that. I've already had some folks say they might be interested in hosting. We need to know by the end of the month. We need to have 2 host families committed if we do that. So if you're interested, Nelson, some people mentioned you and thought you'd be a great host family potentially, so we think you'd be, or maybe you just recruit some people.
I had to speak with the boss about it.
Exactly, that's what I've heard. It doesn't have to be a Rotarian. If they're a host family, it can be anybody in the community. I think there is a little bit of a program they have to go through to be approved to be a host family, but it's something we've done before, and some people have said it was, actually at the board meeting, I think Dwight said it's the best thing we've done. One of the best things that we've done in the experience. So we want to look into doing that. So
Did they say where they're coming from?
No.
They did not.
They just want us to participate if we can. We need to let them know by the end of the month if we are serious about that. Donna, you don't want to say anything about grants. I think we're in good shape on that. The dictionaries are one of the open grants. We need to finish that. Anything else? Good. You want to say anything about the raffle tickets? Yeah, I know you have a few more
I have
left.
raffle tickets still, if anyone wants to take some more to sell. They're $10 a piece. I said we get half of that back for every sale, so definitely worthwhile.
Ron, anything, Sergeant? Or I'm going to tell any funny jokes or anything?
No, I've already told it.
We didn't hear it.
You want me to tell you? There's a simple, we were talking cattle talk and also said this one particular person, you gotta watch buying a bull from him. You know, he might tell little stories, it's like the guy selling the horse. Somebody come up to him and said, I want to buy your horse. And he says, well, you don't look too good. He said, well, that's all right. He said, I just want to use him to work it on. He said, well, he don't look too good. He said, well, that's fine, I'll buy the horse anyhow. The guy bought him, went home, come back over, and he says, hey, that horse is blind. He said, I told you he didn't look too good.
Thank you for the
I caused that, you know.
That's quite enough, Ronnie.
Would you like to hear a really good one?
Okay, Amanda, Secretary.
Yeah, I can.
Let's see here, we have a couple of guests from the hospitals I see. Batesville High School, if you don't care to stand and introduce yourself, please.
My name's Hannah Puckett and I'm a senior at Batesville. My name's Lauren McDaniel and I'm a junior at Batesville.
Welcome. And we have some from Southside High School as well, if you guys don't mind to stand and introduce yourselves.
My name is Carly Mosier and I'm a senior at Southside.
My name's Destiny Kling and I'm a senior at Southside.
Welcome. And Cassandra, do you have a guest
I
today?
do. This is Danira Medina. She's our new mortgage originator at Centennial Bank.
Happy to have her. And as Nelson mentioned earlier, Jared is back with us today.
Welcome back, Jared.
And, that's all I have.
Very good. Dwight is, I think he's had to leave, but invoices have gone out, so please pay those. If you haven't received one, you missed it in the spam filter, so they have been emailed to you, so please look for that and pay it if you would. We had a great turnout at Health and Hope last week. The Road Rackers came out and did a great job helping the four of us, so it was good to have that support. Any other announcements for good of the club? Nelson, you're the door greeter today. You did a great job greeting us.
Well, don't you all, you're welcome.
You see Micah Beard, he's up next week as the door greeter. Any other announcements? Okay. Introduce our speaker.
It's my privilege today to introduce to you Mr. David Campbell, who's the principal of Batesville High School. And I got to know David this year, obviously the first I've been here. He's been here a long time. And I do appreciate, number one, the care and the love that he brings to kids on an everyday basis. He has the heart of a missionary, and he takes the educating of our children as his mission in life. And so I appreciate his heart. He is awesome with details. I can count on him to make sure everything's taken care of, and that is a huge job. I will tell you, the hardest job in K-12 education is being a high school principal. And he does us an excellent job, and he's here today to talk to you about school safety.
Thank you very much.
We're going to make sure your microphone's on real quick. I think it is.
Testing. I've got a pretty good principal voice.
I figured you did. It's on. It's on.
While you're
now.
up here, I always like to give President a present, so.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
We're there with pride, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
There we go. It is good to be here. And when superintendent asks you if you'd like to come speak, you kind of say, yes, sir. It's always a pleasure to speak. Most educators don't mind speaking, and I'm not an expert on school safety, obviously, but I think my 29 years as an educator, but more importantly, 25 years as a parent, probably qualifies me to speak a little bit. So hopefully today, we'll share a few things about school safety. You may or may not know about the district. I'll probably be a little bit more specific about the high school, but district-wide, I feel like we have a good plan in place to make sure that our kids are safe. And we'll talk about that just a little bit. But before I get started, what a pleasure to come in such a building like this. Isn't this awesome? Hopefully this isn't your first time here. It's probably not. It's just so awesome. I've got kids spread all out throughout the gamut, 25-year-old, 21-year-old, and a 14-year-old. And my 14-year-old is really plugged into the swimming program here. So it's just a joy to be able to bring him here to swim, and then Lori and I can exercise around the walking track or whatever we need to do. But so proud of the city for their vision here for this facility. So I want to, like I said, talk a little bit about school safety. And so a little bit of class participation here, not a lot, but just a little bit. I want you to think back to a time in your life when you did not feel safe. And it could be, you may have to go way back. You may have to go back when you were a child. You may have to go back to maybe your first day at college, or maybe you've gone to a foreign country, or maybe in an airport or something. You know, I've been in places where I did not feel safe. And the first thing on my mind was not paying attention or learning or anything else. I basically went into, basically you go into survival mode when you don't feel safe. And so it is so very, very important to us as educators to make sure that every learning environment we have is safe. Because as we know, and as parents, many of you are parents here, children are not going to learn or perform if they don't feel safe, if they don't feel secure. And so that is just very, very important to us. Another question. How many of you right now at this point have a child in public schools here in the county? Anybody? A couple of you? A few of you? How about grandkids? Okay. And at one point or the other, you may have had children in the district, and you yourself went through school. Although us older guys and gals, it's changed a lot since we've been in school. And some of the things we're going to talk about today, you would have never even thought about going to school and having to deal with. And so when we talk about these things, just think about how much pressure and how much stress is on just the average classroom teacher of not only getting that content out to their students, but just making sure that they're protecting those students. And I don't think I have to remind anyone in here how important that is. But no matter how good our schools are, and we've got great schools in this county, I mean, it's just a great place to live. Dr. Hester said I've been here a long time. I have been here a long time. I grew up here, graduated from Batesville High School in 1984, and went to UCA, graduated there, moved off to Texas for a couple of years, and like they say, it's a whole other country in Texas. Moved back home, and Lori and I have been here pretty much ever since. Our folks live here. It's just a great community. But no matter how good our schools are, content-wise, curriculum-wise, football-wise, soccer, whatever, the number one priority, and I can say this because I'm a parent, the number one priority is when you drop your child off at school, you want to know they're going to be safe. When you put them on the bus, you want them to know they're going to be safe. And so I'm going to talk about just a few things that we do at the Batesville School District. I would bet a dollar bill Southside probably does many of the same things because they've got a good school across the river too. And so some of the things we talk about will be common to both school districts, I'm sure. One more brain activity, and then I'll get to what I want to talk about. Think back to your college days in Psychology 101. Everybody remember Psychology 101? I remember the guy that taught me Psychology 101. His name was Dr. Feast. Great name, Dr. Feast. At UCA taught me Psychology 101. Remember at the very base of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Anybody remember that? It's kind of a common thing inside. Does anybody remember what's at the very base of that pyramid? Anybody remember? Safety is the second one. It's right above food, shelter, clothing. So physical needs, but like Dr. Hester said, almost at that very bottom is a feeling of security and safety. So I'm not a psychologist. I was an art teacher for 10 years and then got into administration. So I'm a little different character as far as most administrators go with an art background. But remembering back to psychology, you're not going to teach a whole lot of calculus to somebody if they're scared. You're not going to teach the ABCs to a 5-year-old if they don't want to come in that room and let go of their mommy's hand. So as educators, we have a pretty big job of making sure that they feel safe. So at the Batesville School District, we're working hard to meet this need, to put students first. And so I want to share a little bit how we're going to try to move those students up that pyramid from feeling safe and having a full stomach to being a self-actualized student. So here we go. And I've got 20 of them, but I'm going to go fast, okay? I promise. Number one, for me, the heartbeat of any school, and you can argue with me all day long and you'll lose because I'm married to one, and that's the teacher. The teacher is at the heart of anything a school does. You can have the best principal, superintendent, maintenance staff, whatever you want to talk about, but if you don't have those soldiers in the trenches, you are not going to have a successful school. And that goes back to safety. You've got to have quality teachers. You've got to have teachers that care about kids. One of the first legal terms I learned, Barrett, I'll probably mispronounce it, when I was in grad school was in locus parentis, okay? In place of parent. As educators, we take that extremely seriously. I would say that every teacher at Batesville High School, and most teachers in Arkansas and throughout the nation, take that extremely serious, in locus parentis. In other words, when you drop your child off with us, we are in place of you, and we take that extremely serious. You do not have to go far to see that when you watch the national news, when you see those horrific school shootings. What do most teachers do? They stand in front of the student to protect the student. And so when we say we take safety seriously, that's what we mean. We mean we are going to protect your students, your grandkids, your relatives like they are our own. And you know, that's a little bit of a paradigm, especially for me or for lots of educators in Batesville. A lot of times both husband and wife are teachers. That's the case for Lori and I, Lisa and Roger. A lot of educators were married. And so when we send our kids off to school, we're placing them in the hands of other educators. And we've had many emergencies throughout the years of my career, not anything super serious. But there's been days where after the emergency happened and after everyone was safe, I thought, boy, I hope Caitlin's okay. I hope Davis is okay. I hope Kaysen is okay. And they were, because of educators that took the term in locus parentis seriously. And so next time you see a teacher, maybe pat them on the back and thank them for that. It's a little bit of a thankless job at times. Number two, our bus drivers, and all bus drivers receive training. They receive training every year. They watch videos. They receive professional development on safety. So when we're talking about safety here, I'm not just talking about stopping a school shooter. We're talking about the broader view of safety. So sometimes bus drivers get a little bit of a bad rap maybe, but they have a tough job. And so they are trained and they do their job as best they can. We have cameras in all of our buses in Batesville School District. So if something happens, we can review that film. And that has happened several times, and that is also a deterrent to know that when you're getting on a bus, you're being filmed. It's pretty hard to go anywhere in the United States and not be filmed. I think I'm being filmed right now, right, Mr. Green? All right. If you walk into the Batesville High School, you're going to be filmed. Okay, we're going to talk about how many cameras I have on my campus in just a minute. You go into a bank, a lot of you guys are bankers, you're probably going to be filmed. It's just part of our life. So we have cameras, we also have GPS units on our buses so that we can know at any moment where a bus is. If there's an accident, if there's something that goes wrong, if we need to intervene. And so that's all managed from our transportation headquarters. And then many of our buses have monitors, an extra person on there to help with discipline or to help with control there. Okay. Each of our campuses, we have a lot of campuses in the Batesville School District, are covered with a complex camera security system. At Batesville High School, we have just under 100 cameras, believe it or not. If you've ever been to the high school, we're a little bit spread out. We have the athletic complex, we have the high school building kind of in the middle, and then we have the ag and band off to the side. And of course, junior high is separate. They have their own camera system. So at any time, we can monitor anywhere we need. Now, I don't have someone sitting there watching cameras 24/7, so it's more of a deterrent, and then it's also used to see what happened. But most students, we're very fortunate. Our students do what they're supposed to do 99.9% of the time, and we don't even have to use the cameras that much, but they are there in case we need them. Sometimes we have to use the cameras to see which parent is driving the wrong way or driving too fast. So sometimes we use them to talk to our parents also. When you come to Batesville High School or Eagle Mountain or West or Sulphur Rock and kids are present, there's also going to be a teacher present. We have teachers on duty at all times. It doesn't really matter what time of the day it is, there's going to be a teacher on duty. So that means early in the morning when the buses roll in, you've got a teacher on duty. Certified person who's been through training, knows child development, is also governed by a teacher professional code of ethics, watching your kids. That's at all times. That's from the time they get there, from the time they leave. Also, and this is a big part of my job, is extracurricular events. All those extracurricular events you go to, I'm usually there, and Dr. Hester too. And that's a big part of what we do. We like being there, obviously. We love seeing our kids perform, supporting our kids, but we're also on duty. And there's probably, not to sound negative, but there's probably not been a big event that I go to that the first thing that runs through my mind is, what do I do if this happens? What do I do if this happens? What do I do if this happens? And God forbid anything would ever happen like that, but we do have plans in place if things like that happen. So, we're covered, you're covered, your children are covered with duty teachers and administrators that care. Something very simple, all the buildings have intercom systems. That seems kind of old-fashioned, but we all have intercom systems. Teachers can push and say, I need assistance, or whatever they need. We can do all calls if we have to do a intruder alert or anything like that. And then, of course, we have backup radios that are district-wide. So if the electricity goes out, or if the intercom system is dismantled, or whatever happens, we have radios that we can call Dr. Hester, and we can call law enforcement or whoever we need on that. One of the biggest things that the Batesville School District has done, and we've had it in place for several years, is the use of resource officers. And I think most public schools have resource officers. Some have more than others. We are so fortunate. We have 3 full-time resource officers. They're equipped with automobiles and all the gear, the training, the special training resource officers train. Officer Robbins is at the high school and junior high. Officer Davidson is at our alternative campus, Central and West. And Officer Collins is at Sulphur Rock and Eagle. It's hard to think about school without these guys. And on the same hand, it's hard for me to go back to my childhood and think about having an officer on campus. That never would even cross my mind. My father-in-law, some of you know Bob Davis, he's kind of a jack of all trades. He was the fire chief here in town for years. Before that, he drove a truck. And he told me years ago when he was driving a truck that he drove into New York one day to unload something. Bob was always on the move, if you know him. And he drove up to a school to unload a load of red iron or something. They were building a building. And he said when he got to the gate, there was an armed guard there. And this was back in the probably early 70s. And he said he came home and said, holy cow, can you believe there's a guard at a school? Nowadays, we think, holy cow, there's not a guard at a school. So, the pendulum swings so much. But that's just life. One thing we do at Batesville High School that's a little different than some schools, and it's certainly different than our elementary campuses. On the secondary level, we use the drug dog that the city has. Years ago, we had our own drug dog. When Officer Cockrell, or Chief Cockrell now, Chief Cockrell was my resource officer for several years at the high school. Now he's the police chief. He had his own dog. We had her on campus. It was awesome. But now we work hand in hand with the sheriff's department and police department. We bring that drug dog on campus, number 1, to educate the kids, but number 2, as a deterrent. And we run the parking lot, and we run the lockers and things like that. And seldom anything shows up. But it is there for school safety and to keep drugs out of our campus and out of our children's hands. That's something we do a few times a year. Another thing we do is we drug test all of our drivers. We do that on a random basis. If you sign up to drive at Batesville High School, you sign up to say, I agree to be drug tested. And we have a policy in place that, first of all, we don't want anybody taking drugs for lots of reasons. It's a horrible life choice, and it's bad for your health, but it also endangers people. And we've got 1,300 people up there on the campus, and we don't need someone impaired driving up there. High school drivers are impaired enough just by the definition, and so we don't need them any more impaired. Sorry, girls. This is a good representation of our country. Probably never been in trouble a day in your life. But we do drug test our drivers, and we also drug test our students in athletics. Next year, we're moving to testing students in all extracurricular activities, too. And so we just feel like that's a move in the right direction. Another thing that's huge on campuses that I think is that's been a really move in the right direction is that our campuses have a buzz-in system. If you've been to the elementary schools, they have a camera, and you buzz in and they look at you and they let you come in. High school system's a little different. We have a glass door and you come in and the secretary can buzz you into the rest of the building. And then of course you probably all had to put the sticker on saying that you're a visitor, kind of like you do when you go to the ER to visit someone, visitor, just for identification purposes. And so most of our campuses have that. I think we have one campus that's still working out the bugs on that, but I'm sure that will be in place shortly. We try to lock all the outside doors. We try to lock all the inside doors. You know, it's the challenge is making a school a pleasant learning environment without feeling kind of like a prison. And I've not really been in a school that feels like a prison, but we encourage our teachers to lock their classroom doors. And then if you my point of reference is the high school. There's about 65 doors at the high school, exterior doors at the high school. That's a lot of doors to try to keep locked. And so we have a system that we use to keep all but 3 of those doors locked at all times. So it's just being diligent. It's just trying to be smart with what you have. Of course, we have signage on all the doors. Every school has signage on the door saying visitors must check in, must sign in, things like that. It's kind of like a lock. A lock will keep honest people out of something. But most people that come to school are coming there for a positive encounter, not a bad encounter. Our teachers and staff wear ID badges, and sometimes we wear photo ID badges, and sometimes we wear the little metal magnetic ones, and that's just to identify ourselves. And so we need to be readily noticeable if someone needs us, and we try to always wear ID badges. In the world of bullying and harassment, sort of an overused word maybe, don't have to tell a high school counselor that, but all schools have an anti-bullying, anti-harassment policy in place. And why would I talk about that, about school safety? Because many times bullying leads to acts of violence. Harassment can lead to acts of violence. So you try to be proactive. So real quick, not to talk down, there's a big difference though in bullying and just somebody being mean. Because so many times somebody will come and say, my child's being bullied. If I bump into Dr. Hester in the hall this afternoon and say, get out of my way, punk. We want to say that a long time ago. I'm kidding. If I just nudge him and say, get out of my way, punk, that is not bullying. That's me being mean. That's me being a jerk. Okay, he probably could take me too, so that's probably not very smart. But if every day after lunch I hide behind the bathroom door and when he comes in I punch him and say, hey punk, I'm getting you tomorrow after school, that's bullying. Repeated, premeditated, things like that. So just be careful when your kids or grandkids say they're being bullied or harassed, but tell us so that we can investigate it. Every case at Batesville High School is investigated, no matter how, many times we've done it because we want to be sure we're not missing something. You don't want to miss it that one time and then someone act out because no one took them seriously. And so that's just something else we try to do. Bless my assistant's heart on that. He deals with that. Social media has not helped that, has it? Because they can do it at 2 o'clock in their bedroom in the middle of the night, can't they? And then we handle it the next day at school. So tell your kids to not sleep with their phones. We have emergency procedures in place. I bet when we walked in this building, there's maps telling us how to evacuate. They probably do drills here. We do that. We're required by the state to do that, but it makes pretty good sense to know how to get in and out of a building, in and off of buses, things like that. So we have emergency procedures in place. Drills are practiced like fire, storm, and lockdown. We'll talk a little bit more about lockdown, then I'll be finished in just a minute, I promise. We also have off-campus safe houses arranged. Kind of sounds scary, doesn't it? But if we have to evacuate, we have to put those kids somewhere. So sometimes when you evacuate the building, all you need to do is have a fire drill or there's smoke in a locker room, you need to get them out. You need to get them out in the parking lot. If something's really on fire, you probably need them a little further away, so we're going to put them on the football field if that happens. If we think there's a bomb in the building, we need to get them far, far away. And so we're going to take them to our safe house. And that requires transportation. So it's not just a lickety-split type thing. So there's all kinds of things to have in place when you talk about school safety. Of course, our fire department helps us out. They come and inspect us several times a year. Many times, I'll just call the fire chief, I'll call Brent and say, hey, could you come look at this and tell me if this is okay? We're thinking about doing this, is this okay? We're having a fire drill next month. Would you guys come and block this exit and put your truck up here and make this a little bit more of a real situation? And they're happy to do that. They're really good community partners. The police uses our campus for training a lot. They'll use the high school for a hostage situation type training. And so they use our field house sometimes for their physical workouts and things. So it's just good to have those community partners. And I know you guys understand that far better than I do. Using community partners in a positive ways. We have had teacher training on intruders. I think it's been a couple of years since we've done that, but I know we talked about that in our last admin meeting of doing that again. We've had a few new personnel join our team, and I'm sure we'll be doing that. But the next thing I want to talk about is this particular piece of hardware. Okay, does anybody know what this is? You guys think they know what this is?
It's a lock for a door, right?
It's a lock for a door, right? It's a U-bolt. Okay? It's a U-bolt. And all of our doors in the Batesville School District, and I don't know how many doors that is, but our maintenance guy could probably tell us because his team put all these on. And every door in campus, I'm talking about some of our classrooms have 5 doors. And so there's a bunch of them. And so when we go to lockdown, there's the procedures teachers have to do, and then the very first part of that is sliding that in. There's a mechanism on the door, and there's a mechanism on the door frame that slides in. And it would take quite a while for an intruder to get through with one of these on the doors. I do have a sledgehammer in my office right behind my desk in case I have to breach a door, but it would probably take me about 10 minutes beating on that door to get through. Hopefully in 10 minutes we could get some help to a classroom. It'll probably take more than 10 minutes to do that. But we put these on a couple years ago. And let me tell you a little quick story here. This may have been one of the reasons we put them on, I'm not sure. A couple years ago, it was early in the morning at high school, or early in the morning here in Batesville, and I got a message on my phone. We also have on our phones, we have a panic button app that if something happens, we get notified. It sends that message to dispatch so that dispatch can send help. But anyway, I'm standing in my office, one of the few times I'm in there alone, and my phone buzzes and I look at it and I get the message nobody wants to see. It says, intruder alert, Batesville High School. Okay, there's no drill planned, there's no nothing planned. This is it. You know, this is go time. It's one of the worst times you can have something like this happen. No one would ever schedule a drill during class change. It's class change. Every student at Batesville High School is in the halls. Some of them are outside. Some of them are at the gym. Some of them are at the ag building coming down. So I get the message, intruder alert, Batesville High School. So there's not a whole lot of time to think. You can't really go get the crisis manual off the shelf. Hopefully you've looked at it before that day. So I immediately pick up the intercom in my office and go to lockdown. There's a procedure we go through. I won't bore you with that, but we go to lockdown. The thing that made me so proud as the principal of that building, within 30 seconds, and maybe 20 seconds, it happened so fast. The halls were completely empty. Every room was shut. Now this was before U-bolt, so every door was locked, lights out. Every child was, I don't know how it happened, not outside but inside and in a safe place. So at this point we still are thinking this is the real deal. And so we have a procedure in place to notify people, so everybody was getting notified. Of course, junior high, our neighbors, they've got to go on lockdown. We've got to get police there. We have a unique situation in our town. We have sheriff's department and police department, and we had the SWAT team there. They arrived. So who's in charge? I didn't really care who was in charge. I just needed help. So I just kind of took charge and said, I need you with that machine gun to come with me, and I divided out who was doing what. And my assistant went one way, I went the other way, our resource officer there, and so we cleared the building, for lack of a better word. We went room to room. I would take my key out, knock on the door, say, Mr. Campbell coming in with a key and the police. I would open the door, swing the door open, the guy would come in and clear the room. Now, I'm going to say this was a happy ending because there was no shooter in the building. But for 30 minutes, we thought there was a shooter in the building. And here's what happened. During class change, a student had his cell phone in his back pocket. Somebody hit it, dialed 911. All the dispatcher heard was lots of noise and nobody responding. The call coming from Batesville High School. So what did the dispatcher decide to do? She did the right thing. She said it's lockdown time. So we learned a lot from that. We debriefed after that with the sheriff's department, the police department. We went ahead and cleared the building, by the way. About 20 minutes in, we thought that's what had happened, and we traced the call back to a room, but we still were not for sure there wasn't a shooter in that room. So it was kind of tense that day. But we learned a lot. Our kids learned a lot. Our district decided to do this, and I think it's been a step in the right direction. One of the things we did then that we do differently now, those students went into the classroom with their teacher, we turned the lights off, and the philosophy was huddle and hide. If you watch the news today, the philosophy is protect and fight. And I think that's probably what our teachers would do now. It was a little bit of, it's funny now, some of the classrooms when I keyed in, I had a teacher with a hot pot of coffee right by the door, ready to throw it on me. Chad LaRose, if you know him. Patrick Rowe, who works at a different district, he's a former Marine. He had an American flag ready to impale. I mean, it was go time. And I was so proud of my team. And they protected the kids. And it was the real deal. We had kids crying, we had teachers crying. It was, for 30 minutes, as real as it gets without being serious. So we take that experience, and we really learned a lot from that experience. So I talked about the panic button app on our phones. We have that. We have a crisis manual to follow. Another key thing we had, and we've not always had this, along with our counseling department. We have a great counseling department. We have school-based mental health on our campus. And what that is, that's another layer of protection for our kids. If after talking to the counselors, if we feel like we need to go another level, go up another tier, we can get them professional counseling free to the student, get them the help they need from outside services with school-based mental health. And along with that, there's threat assessments. There's all kinds of things. We use Google Classroom, Google Docs for that, that we can assess that child at that particular moment and say, this is a serious threat, we need help. Or this is a minor threat, let's call the parents and let's recommend counseling. So school-based mental health is just a tremendous asset to our district. And then lastly, I told you I'd try to hurry, is just living and working in such a great community and have community partners like people sitting in this room. We could not do what we do without the police department, OES, EMT, fire department, police, but also the support of our patrons, our banks, our professional people. You guys selfishly give to our schools so that we can have facilities that are safe, that are state-of-the-art, so that our kids can learn. You help us do our job. You may not know that, but by your support, and even you listening here to me today, hopefully you can go out if someone says, oh, that school doesn't care about kids. I hope you can say, well, I've heard a little speech and I think they do. And so we appreciate that, having partners like that. So we do all of this. This is just some of the ways that we try at Batesville School District to put students first. And I appreciate your attention. Anybody have a specific question?
How long have you had the in-school mental health counseling?
It's been there for probably 8 years. It's been there quite a while. So it's a big help. It's a big help. We have counselors that come in to the school so that the students do not have to leave the building for that. Yes,
David, I wondered, in Florida, they set off the firewall.
Yes.
And everybody started leaving the building.
Yes.
Did that change our policy?
We're reevaluating every policy we have. Not to tell any secrets here or not, but anytime we execute a fire drill along with the horn blowing, either me or one of my assistants will say, teachers execute fire drill. Just so that if someone pulled it, the teachers know not to evacuate the building unless that all call goes with it. Now, obviously, if the building's on fire and there's smoke, teachers are going to be professional and do what they need to do. But, the story from West Side of Jonesboro, when they pulled the alarm and then the students were basically snipers in the woods. I'm sure they have a different policy there for that. But we try to use that intercom as best we can. And then, of course, our cell phones, there's all kinds of groups you can set up on cell phones. I have little codes I can send to my teachers to tell them to do certain things via cell phone. And of course, I've got a bullhorn in my office if I need it. You just do what you got to do. situation by situation. Anybody else? I will say this, a lot of that sounded negative. I love teaching, I love being an educator, I don't think I'd do anything else. I've had the opportunity to do lots of things. My dad's a contractor here in town, I've worked with him a lot. I love that, I could have done that, I think I could have done a lot of things. But I think education and being an educator is one of the most rewarding things you can do. So even with this, some of this stuff sounds kind of heavy, I wouldn't change a thing. So I appreciate you letting me talk today.
Thank you. And we have a literacy project. We'll donate a book in your honor to the local library. Can you speak to us today? And if you would, unless you're participating in the draw, if you pick our winning raffle ticket, that'd be great.
Oh, wow. That's pressure.
It is.
Okay, David, let me take it.
I'm gonna run it after you get the ticket already. 231-8958. 8958.
All right. This could be it.
Try the middle, Andre, try the middle.
Oh,
bless your heart.
112 cards. 112. Any other announcements? Please remember to turn in your voting sheets on what you think we should do for our next location and meal opportunity. Give those to Donna or me. We'll send them out by email too. If there's nothing else, we'll end with the four-way test. Number 1, is this the truth? Number 2,
Is it fair to all concerned?
Number 3,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
and number 4.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Have a great week.